What's an example of like a change in consciousness or a different consciousness?
Okay, let me begin by talking about your middle dantian first, and then we'll get into the upper dantian in terms of what examples of changes of consciousness might entail. This is something I was going to talk about a little bit later anyway, but being that you brought it up as a question, we can do it now. So first of all, understand that every emotion that you feel, every thought that you have, all of that is just various manifestations of energy. And energy manifesting at different frequencies will create different types of results in our consciousness and in our other felt senses. So when we were working on movement number 4, and we were I brought up the Buddhist term bodhisattva, which means compassion. So when we're moving a lot of chi through our middle dantian, we are ultimately going to be engendering a greater ability to have compassion. Now, compassion itself is one of the higher octaves of the emotion that we typically experience as love, which is what we also typically identify as having something to do with our heart. And there's all different qualities of love. There's romantic love, and there's love that parents have for their children, and brothers have for their sisters, and sisters for their brothers, and love that you have for friends. The Greeks had eros and agape. Agape is more like compassion. It's like a selfless kind of love, where eros is more your romantic love. All of those are just different states of energy that you're moving through yourself. And so what we in movement number, well, all the movements, but movement number 4, when we're starting to engender this ability to enhance our compassion, we want to think of it also as tuning into the various vibrational frequencies that are associated with love in its many aspects. Now, love itself is a very healing energy, and dragon and tiger is a medical qigong. So even before we consciously try to tap into that sense of compassion, we're working at healing ourselves, right? So one of the big sticking points that most people have is the ability to love themselves, to have compassion for themselves, right? Most people might feel like, they don't deserve to be loved, or on one level or another, they're not as worthy as someone else in, their profession or any aspect of their life. So we need to first work at being able to perceive that, acknowledge that, and start to engender this greater love within ourselves, which then allows us actually to be able to be more compassionate to everyone else around us too. So that's similar to the old airplane analogy. If you're in an airplane and there's an emergency, and the cabin loses oxygen and all the oxygen masks come down, if you're a parent and you have your kids there, your first thought is, I got to put these masks on my kids. But if you do that and you pass out, you can't help your kids. So you have to put your oxygen mask on yourself first. So even if your kids lose consciousness, you can then put their oxygen mask on them, and they're going to be fine. But if you don't take care of yourself first, they could die, because you're not going to be there you haven't taken care of yourself to the point where you are able to take care of your kids, because you pass out. So we need to learn how to accept ourselves. I mean, all of us are imperfect. We're all on this planet because we have certain lessons that we need to be learning, we need to be working on. But we need to be gentle with ourselves, understanding with ourselves, and have self-compassion, so that then we're able to help others in the compassionate way that we really want to be able to do. So when we are opening up our heart center, our heart center starts to function more as the central processing unit of everything that goes on in our bodies. So I've also mentioned to you that when your heart center opens up and it comes online, it keeps track of all of the things that most of you have reported on having a lot of difficulty keeping track of when you're doing your dragon and tiger practice. But it will start to keep track of that, so that you're not consciously and intellectually always on top of every last little bit of your dragon and tiger practice. That's another way of saying what I mentioned a little bit earlier, that you don't necessarily want to get fixated on any one little part of your practice. You have to see it and experience it as a whole. So now when we are bringing our upper dantian online, this analogy might work for you. I hope it does. It's the most clear one that I could come up with as an analogy, but it's a little bit like, your heart center is like NASA, the National Aeronautics Space Administration, right? Based in Houston. So, and your upper dantian is like all of the people and machinery and probes and sensing mechanisms that go out beyond our planet. And whether it's like astronauts on the moon that bring moon rocks back, or we've got the Mars rover out on Mars now gathering information from the planet Mars. We've had satellites go out beyond the moons of Jupiter and get a lot of information about the moons to see about, is there life on Jupiter's moons? And all of that is like, there's all of that information that's coming back to NASA. And that's very much like when you get your upper dantian activated, you are beginning to be able to tap into all of the information that exists beyond the confines of your daily intellect, your intellectual processes. And so some of the things that happen in terms of changes of consciousness is that, for example, you may, your intuition may start to become a lot more precise and a lot more clear. Your intuition is your ability to know things that are outside of an intellectual framework, because you can't think your way into having greater intuition. You can't do calculations that will make your intuition come online. But you get this information that's coming in by opening up, by clearing out obstructions, in part by turning off your intellect. When you're doing dragon and tiger, intellect's a great thing, and I'm not saying you want to ignore it, but it needs to be a servant and not a master. So we get all this information coming in, and all of that goes to our heart mind, right? And our heart mind processes that, just like, when you turn on the radio every day or watch the news, you don't get all the information that's coming back from the Mars rover or from other satellites that are out there, from the Hubble telescope. That information is all coming in, goes through NASA or whatever other scientific organizations there are, similar to your heart mind. And then periodically you'll get bits of information that your heart mind or NASA wants to share with everyone else on the planet. But everyone else on the planet doesn't have to filter through and sort through all of those other bits of information on an intellectual level that are coming in, right? So heightened intuition can be a shift in consciousness, or an aspect of a shift in consciousness. Your creativity may come online much more fully. Creative people will get in flow states where they're just outside of the most people's normal perceptions of the flow of time. And your consciousness links with parts of you that are higher than or outside of your normal waking consciousness. And that's one of the things that allow various types of creative expression. In practical work-oriented ways, you may find that you are able to all of a sudden problem solve in a much better way than you were before. Something that may have been a sticking point in your work, or something in your personal life that's a problem. The problem solve, the problems, this is where the kind of the magic comes in. The magic makes it seem like these problems are immediately solvable, or are much more easily solvable. With all of these things that I can actually use words to help describe, there are perceptual shifts that you will experience that is going to be unique to each person, right? Not every musician makes exactly the same music. Not every artist paints exactly the same painting. The energy that flows through you is going to express itself in different ways. And your sense of what it is that you're experiencing is going to be a little different than what Peter's sense of what he's experiencing is, or Nama or Joe or Al or any of you guys. The actual descriptions of the other changes of consciousness are going to be varied, but you may have a sense of, just like when we talked about earlier on, getting that big release from your heart mind, there's that sense of spaciousness, that sense of expansiveness, and you may get this great sense of clarity and expansiveness as your consciousness shifts, when you're moving more qi through your upper dantian and you are connecting that with your middle dantian. So all of those things are clues or little bits of objective things that you can experience that let you know, even if you are not sure, because I know this is a question that some of you posed a couple of classes back. How do I know if I'm opening my heart mind? How do I know if I'm getting this expansion? What's the yin expanse feel like? That's going to be kind of varied, and you have to explore that. But if you find that you're being more compassionate to, and one of the interesting things about compassion, and one of the helpful things about compassion in this way is, are you starting to become maybe more compassionate towards people that you might otherwise have thought were somehow you didn't want to have anything to do with, for whatever reason? They creeped you out, they were scared you, whatever. If you're generating compassion, you can have compassionate feelings and greater understanding of people that are in that category in your life. It's a lot easier to have compassion for people you already care about, people you already love. It's a lot harder to have compassion about people who might scare you or freak you out or repel you or whatever. But if you're starting to feel compassion to those kind of people, that lets you know you're tapping into what you're getting your heart mind to open. If your intuition is getting better, that's letting you know you're tapping into the energies that we're trying to access. Remember that this level 3 dragon and tiger stuff, this is the entry point to the spiritual dimension of dragon and tiger. And so this is not something that's going to come online in a few weeks or a few months. This is going to be over the next years of your life that you're going to be cultivating this, you're going to be developing this, that you're going to be deepening this. And hopefully it'll be something that you do actively engage with through the rest of your life, so you can continue your spiritual growth through all of that. So anyway, Bernice, does that help with your, does that kind of, were you looking for something different or more than that, or does that give you what you're looking for?
No, that's good. Thanks.